Hey guys, due to a couple of requests, I've actually made a new character so that I can show all of you how I leveled my Warbringer using Shield Wall from start to finish. The video is quite long because I am going to be showcasing a lot of the clips, but I will be putting timestamps in the video description so that you can easily skip to the parts that you want to. I've also got a path of building that has more details about the nodes that I took in each act, as well as the changes I made during the campaign and during the Shield Wall swap. It also has some information that I wrote myself, so please go ahead and check that out. Also, please bear in mind that although this is very viable as a league starter, I am using some leveling uniques in the beginning so that I can speed things up. But you don't have to do this. As long as you can get to level 20, then you can play it however way you want to. So that's about it with the intro. Let's get started. So Act 1 is actually very easy, as I will be using a lot of leveling uniques. But if you can't get any of these uniques, at least try to get this weapon right here, which is the Hrimnor's Hymn. This allows you to have a lot of physical damage early, as well as some strength. It also gives us some life per kill as well, so it's very useful when you get to low HP earlier on. But it doesn't really matter because you're just going to be using Mace Strike Vet at this stage. So throughout the video you'll see on the left all the skills that I'm using, and you'll see it change as I progress through the campaign, so I won't have to explain what I'm using during at which time. But earlier on, as you can see, you get your Infernal Cry as soon as you can, and then you're just using Mace Strike that's linked with Rapid Strikes and Rage just to keep bonking on enemies until they die, and this makes a lot of the boss fights way easier. You don't really have to use your Earthquake as much, and you'll pretty much be doing this till the end of the act. And at this point, this is where you get your first Spirit Gem, and you want to use this on Herald of Ash so that we get some overkill damage when we clear some packs. We don't have the best AoE earlier on because Earthquake is quite slow, and so we'll be relying on using Infernal Cry and Herald of Ash to do the heavy lifting when we're doing big packs. And as you can see, I did switch to a one-handed mace, and that is a unique called Frost Breath. And it's not really mandatory, but I feel like it works way better because we can freeze with it and it attacks way quicker than a two-hander. And we're just going to be using this until we hit level 20. So in Act 2 not much has changed, so we're still going to be using the same stuff as we were using before, and obviously we're still using Mace Strike. And at this point we're just bonking away on bosses until they die, and we have the ability to freeze right now, so it's very good for some survivability. But like I said, it's not mandatory. You can get away with just using any weapon at this point. Just use the highest damaging weapon that you can get. So after deterring Jamanra, we now hit level 20, and this is where I did my first set of upgrades. Notably the chest piece, which is now a Titan Rock Cataphract, which lets us have up to 30% increased strength, and a bunch of armor as well, in exchange for having 10% reduction to dexterity and intelligence, and as well as having no life regeneration. But those don't really matter too much for us, and so having the 30% increased strength works really well for more life and survivability for this build. So this is what we're going to be using throughout the entire campaign from now on. So if we rewind a little, you can see the gear that I've actually opted to use for my upgrades. For the weapon, just get as much damage as you can. For the armor pieces, you want to find ones with the maximum strength that you can get for it, and for the rings you can have those with added attributes as well. So the main point of it is just trying to find gear that has the most amount of strength on it as possible for one exalt. So if you have amulets and rings that have all attributes and strength, that works. And for the rest of the gear like boots, gloves and helmet, they can also have strength. And if you can find ones with life and resistances, then it's good as well. But if you can't, then I wouldn't worry about it too much for now. And for the shield, you can just get one with a lot of armor as well as strength as well, with life and resistances for now. So at this point we're just finishing off a couple of more maps and try and get ourselves to level 23, which is when we can actually change to our shield wall. And from this point we're getting ready to change our skill tree. We're going to be removing the one-handed nodes in exchange for some more damaging nodes. And primarily we are going to be using Infernal Cry and Earthquake for now, since we haven't done our Ascendancy yet to have a limited usage on our Warcry. But I figured since we hit level 23 it's time to switch and see how the damage goes with the Warcry combo. As you can see here, I'm just changing my gems around. This will get reflected on the left, and this is just seeing how the shield wall feels on mobs. And then I finish off the last boss on the Keth map. And as you can see, the boss damage is pretty good, but it gets better way later on when we start getting more nodes in the passive tree. So after that boss, I decided to do my first Ascendancy, and as you can see, I'm only using one relic just to see if it actually, well, if it actually matters at this stage. Spoiler, it didn't, because I barely got hit during the trial anyway. It's very easy to do, and during the boss, you don't really lose a lot of honor when you get hit, so yeah, having relics at this point doesn't really matter. And so we go ahead and take Warcolor's Bellow for the unlimited usage of our Warcry, as well as the nice Explode addition. And as you can see here, we have now taken off Earthquake, and we are now just primarily using Infernal Cry to trigger our Shield Wall. Here I get a nice ruby gem for the build, and kinda got lucky because we have a socket that we can put this into right now, so pretty nice. So the build feels good at this point. We are able to kill a bunch of mobs in one go if they're close together, but our next upgrade will be as soon as we hit level 27, and this is when we can actually start using Trampletoe. And Trampletoe is really good for this build. I'm even using it as my boots in the final version of this build, and this lets us have overkill damage. Basically, it gives us a lot more AoE potential, making clearing mobs way faster at this point, and being able to use this earlier on is actually pretty nice. Gem quality on Shield Wall is actually nice for more damage, and it's very cheap as well. Gem cutter prisms are cheap as well anyway, so it's pretty much a no-brainer. So as you can see from the final boss of Act 2 and the monkey boss at the start of Act 3, that we can pretty much just stand still and tank everything at this point. And it's pretty good so far, and the damage is still pretty decent. But this is the time when we start adding more skill gems and do some upgrades now that we hit level 33. The formula remains exactly the same. We're trying to find a weapon with high added flat fizz to boost our shield wall damage a little bit further. And now, since we can find higher bases for our level, we can find other items that have basically higher everything, higher strength, higher armor, life and resistances as well, so that's what I've opted to get. And my gear as of now is going to take me to the end of the campaign. That's crazy, right? I've done my last upgrade at level 33, and this is supposed to take me all the way to the end game without falling off. It goes to show that this skill is very underrated and very strong indeed. Also, bear in mind I'm always 3 or 4 levels under the area level, So that means every new area I'm always going to be behind in levels. So after killing the Chimera, I went ahead and did my second Ascendancy, and this felt really easy. Considering I'm, I think, 3 levels under at this point, it went very smoothly, and it's very surprising at this point for me. So anyway, after finishing off the boss, we can now get our second Ascendancy points, and we're going to put that into Anvil's Weight, so that we can get some armor breaking into our build now. And after that, I start making some more changes. Notably, my War Cry is now Fortifying Cry instead of Infernal Cry. This is so that we can use the Shield Wave portion of the gem so that we can add more damage to our combo. And right now I'm adding Bleed 3 onto Fortifying Cry so that it has 100% chance to bleed. And then we're adding Bleed 4 to our Shield Wall so that we benefit from that and gain 30% more damage against bleeding targets. So here's the fight that I wanted to highlight because I feel like a lot of people struggle with this boss specifically, and with this build it kind of just demolishes this boss and you don't have to worry about getting hit by anything because you are so tanky. But in this case the boss didn't even manage to hit us with any big hits, and she died before she even got to do any phase change, so that's kind of awesome. And obviously Doryani didn't stand a chance either. So going into Act 4, nothing much has changed apart from we have now gained more levels to be able to add more offensive nodes in the passive skill tree. So this is what you're seeing. These are just some clips showing that we are still able to kill bosses with the same gear and the same setup. Once you get to this point of Act 4 where you get to select the tattoos and it chooses whether you get a attribute or a resistance, I went ahead and got all resistances because we don't really need as much attributes for this one. And at this point the build is still very much tanky. Here for the Goddess of Justice in the prison, I went and got the life recovery. I should have gotten the mana one instead, but it doesn't really matter at this point.
Stand a chance. Utopia awaits. Whether you like it or not, behold the beginning of tomorrow.
And then Garrosh, I mean Tavakai, also doesn't stand a chance. So now that we've entered the Interlude, I'm only going to show the more significant boss fights from now on, because a lot of the boss fights were very easy to do and there's no point in showing them. But this just means that this build has exceeded far beyond my expectations. With so little investment given to this build, it's able to function this well, even though the last upgrades that we did was back in Act 3. Once you get to this point and you're able to choose a blessing, it's a no-brainer, we're taking the global defenses. So I got pretty lucky with this vendor and actually managed to find a really expensive item for the first time. But straight after this I actually got very unlucky and DC'd. And this DC actually caused me to have my first death, which is very sad, but I mean, it is what it is. And so with the final two bosses for our passive points killed, we ended the campaign at around 6 hours and 20 minutes and with just one death, which is unfortunate because it wasn't entirely our fault. But on my main character I did this whole thing exactly the same with 0 deaths as well. And as you can see, our gear has not changed since Act 3, and it goes to show once again that this build is very powerful and very tanky, even though we have invested very little. So final thoughts. I feel like this is one of the best, if not the best way to level a warrior right now. It was very easy, it was very powerful, very little investment, it cleared the campaign in less than 7 hours, and the uniques that I've used on this are all 1 exalt uniques. Obviously you can improve the damage further by buying more upgrades, but as you saw I didn't actually need to upgrade anything further after Act 3. So if you're looking for something that's fun, strong, tanky, and needs very little investment, and you want to make a warrior, then I feel like you should give this leveling guide a go. Anyways, thank you once again for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. I'm very close to hitting 500 subscribers. And feel free to check out my endgame version of this build, which I've just uploaded a couple of days ago. Even there it performs very well and it clears maps very comfortably and it has very good boss damage. I've been doing a lot of tier 15s and tier 16s with it. I've even killed tier 3 Zesht and tier 3 King of the Mist. So it's been a very solid build so far. Anyway, that's all for today. See you guys next time.